Hello, my name is Kate, and today I'm going to talk about Cruella, which is a film I heard a lot about, but never watched until recently. And after repeatedly watching this, I was surprised how much I liked it. I just really wish it was a film that wasn't about Cruella de Vil. There is a lot that happens in this movie, but the overall plot is that a young girl named Estella thinks that she is to blame for her mother's death, and grows up on the streets as a petty thief with two other homeless orphans named Jasper and Horace, and their dogs. As a young woman who is just starting out as a fashion designer, she meets the woman who actually killed her mother and vows to get revenge. This movie has many things I enjoyed and would want out of a movie. A female lead that knows what she wants, in this case to be a fashion designer. Sure, Horace and Jasper are the ones who get her application approved, but otherwise, all of Estella's actions, they cause things to happen. She's not just reacting to things in the plot. Even as a homeless thief, she was still designing outfits, being obsessed with fashion, and continuing her passions. She was still ambitious, so even when she was just scrubbing toilets and cleaning garbage, she still tried to be a seamstress. Anything she could do to move along with her dreams. And of course, the manager is like a guy, and you can say like, oh, he's looking down at her because she's a woman, and I don't think that's the case because his boss is a woman. He was just looking down on her because she was like poor and not from good breed or whatever he said. And it's like, relax, like it's a department store, it's not that serious. The manager has Estella stay overnight and clean the store by herself, and she ends up going into his liquor cabinet and getting drunk. And once she does get drunk, she redoes the window display in her style. Of course, he's furious and wants her arrested for vandalism, but it just so happens that his boss, the Baroness, shows up and is impressed by it and offers her a job as a fashion designer. It's unclear if the Baroness is the best fashion designer in London or the world at this point. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, while Estella works for the Baroness, she is just in awe of her. She is just so happy to have any attention from her. Even when the Baroness cuts her, she likes the color of red in Estella's blood. And rather than get mad, Estella is like, oh my god, she likes the color of my blood. It isn't until one day Estella sees the Baroness wearing a necklace, the necklace that belonged to her mother. Seeing this necklace sets off Estella, and she catches the scheme with the help of Horace and Jasper to crash the Baroness's party and steal the necklace from her. However, at the party, Estella hears the Baroness use a whistle, the same whistle she heard when the Dalmatians attacked her mother and she fell off a cliff. That's another thing I wasn't clear about. I don't know if these are the same Dalmatians. I doubt it. They'd be so old right now. There's no way they could be running around and jumping and growling like that. Maybe they could. I don't know anything about Dalmatians. Anyway, at this point, Estella figures it out. She wasn't to blame for her mother's death. It was the Baroness. And so she starts her plan as Cruella to take the Baroness down. And just because Estella or Cruella is ambitious doesn't mean she's a one-woman army. She has Horace and Jasper, and while they notice that she's acting much different than her usual self, they understand that this is about her mother and it's a super sensitive topic for her. And there's also Artie, who is a fashionista, a seamstress, a singer, I think, and owns a second-hand luxury items clothing shop. He and Estella bond over their shared love of fashion, and he jumps into join. I think he also knows like a lot of seamstress / models or something, and I'm not sure why they are all helping unless they just also hate the Baroness and want to take her down. But regardless, Cruella does have people around her helping her. There's also Anita Darling from the original movie. In this version, she is a photographer / journalist who seems to exclusively only cover the Baroness and her events. So Cruella shows up to her, and Anita recognizes her from childhood, noting that she's always been a bit wild, but she agrees to photograph Cruella and write about her instead. This leads to a montage of Cruella crashing all the Baroness's events and overshadowing her. Some of them are really funny too, like when she locks her in a car and just covers her with the train of her gown. It's so funny. But as Cruella keeps going on her journey of revenge, she loses herself more and more, pushing away those close to her, and they get fed up with that. Horace and Jasper are sick of doing all her dirty work, kidnapping dogs, and even get arrested, although she does break them out. Towards the end of the movie, Cruella learns the truth. Her mother was never really her mother, and her mother was actually the Baroness. The Baroness was a narcissist who was not happy about motherhood and wanted Estella to die. So instead, one of the servants took Cruella and raised her as her own. This causes Cruella to have a breakdown and go to the fountain her and her mother were going to visit originally together when they go to London. In her way, this is her talking to her mother just about everything she's been through. She talks about how her mother feared that she would end up being like the Baroness when she's older, and how her mother probably thought that she could love her and change her to be someone else, which I think if you ever grew up one way and it wasn't what your parents wanted and they thought they could mold you into another person, you can relate to that. But at this point, Estella claims that she's not the Baroness and she's better than the Baroness, then breaks Horace and Jasper out of jail and apologizes to them for the way she's been, recognizes that they are her family and she should treat them different. And then she goes and gets Artie too. And he's always up for fun. And in one last plot, they take down the Baroness at one of her parties yet again, framing her for the murder of Estella, leaving everything to Cruella, and we'll find out what happens next in Cruella 2. What a movie. I was surprised how much I liked it, but I totally understand why people disliked it, especially having Dalmatians be the ones that knock her mother over a cliff and kill her. So people link that to why she wants to skin puppies in the original story. And even in her own fashion show, she makes a Dalmatian coat. And the Baroness thinks she killed her dogs to make that coat. But it's clearly stated that she never hurt the dogs, and she's actually a dog lover. She has her own dog, who gave me real Scooby-Doo vibes in the early scenes of him. But what are you gonna do? Of course they're going to use CGI. They're not going to use real dogs to just put them in all these situations. And even though I understand that the hair is there for people to recognize her when she's older because she's had it since she was a baby, it's still really annoying that she had black and white hair since she was a baby. Like, yeah, there are a lot of girls that have gray hairs really early on. Like, I had gray hairs when I was 10. Not that bad though, and I think they could have just started out with like a streak of white hair and then it spreads as she gets older, but you know, whatever. People need to recognize her somehow. I also wasn't sure of Cruella's style. Like, yeah, she was aggressive and ambitious and always had this punk aesthetic going on even from early childhood. And I tried to think back to my childhood and if my style was the same as then. I guess it's not the craziest thing in the world, but it was very distracting that she somehow just was always like this. Even had a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air moment when she turns her school jacket inside out to have a more colorful jacket because she doesn't conform. But at the same time, I guess, in an alternative universe, that women like this are the ones that push the way for women in the present. Whatever. Circling back to what I said in the beginning of this review, I really wish the film wasn't about Cruella. I really disliked how it's left ambiguous if she's evil or not in the end. If this was a prequel to the original story, yeah, you could say she's obsessed with fur in the future or something. But if this is some alternate history where she's not obsessed with fur and likes animals and never turns crazy, it's completely different. And if this wasn't attached to this Disney IP, then it could have been just a story about a girl who wants to be a fashion designer and gets revenge for her mother's murder. Because I think the story is really well done. I think there's so many impressive shots. And even though there's a few things I disliked, like the Hunger Games robe catching on fire, that was stupid. And the scene where Estella tries to crawl on the floor to get away, that was some straight Disney Channel sitcom bullshit, and I did not like that shot. I hate that one. What was the director thinking? Oh yeah, Roger's in here too. He works for the Baroness before she fires him because he can't get Cruella arrested, and then he writes a song about her at the end, which is so random. And it makes this whole is she gonna skin puppies when she grows up even more messed up because she sends them Dalmatian puppies and then they get married and then she kidnaps the puppies from the puppies she gave. Like, it's so messed up, which is why I really hate that this is attached to Cruella, because if it wasn't Cruella, it was just a nice gesture by a fashion designer. But even with all the things I dislike in the movie, it's still a really good, well shot movie. 7 out of 10, I will watch Cruella too. I still can't think of a good ending. Bye!